Of course. So I am Angie Bessendorfer. Harry might call me Dr. Angie because I have a doctorate degree. So I have a bachelor's degree from college and a master's degree and a doctorate degree from college. So I've gone to school a lot. I used to be a teacher and I was a principal and I was a superintendent of schools, which runs like all the schools. And then I worked for a university as a chancellor. And now I work for a technology company that is working on skills and skills-based hiring and things like that. So, but I live in the Kansas City, Missouri area. So Kansas City spans two different states, and I'm on the Missouri side of that. And I grew up on a farm. So I grew up, and I'm the first person in my family to graduate from college.
Yeah. So, Dr.
Hello, ma'am.
Hello.
Good morning, ma'am. My name is Gayatri, and I grew from Jilla Pashat High School, Ailavaram. I'm so jubilant to interact with you. Here, I would like to ask you a question. Can I ask, ma'am?
Yes.
Would you mind telling us about public schools in Kansas states? Are public
Yes.
school teachers paid well?
Are the public schools, tell me that last part again.
Are public school teachers paid well?
Okay, I can talk about public schools in Kansas, and I'll really probably talk more about Missouri because that's the state that I live in, so that's no problem. They're neighboring states, so they're very, very similar. So probably you can apply them both ways. So in public schools in the U.S. overall, they go from kindergarten, which is just before first grade, all the way through 12th grade. And so you can get a free public education in kindergarten through 12th grade. Now, many schools now in the US also have pre-kindergarten. So it's like for 3 and 4-year-olds. But that's not necessarily universally true. In public schools in the US and in Missouri and Kansas in particular, the class sizes, like how many students are going to be in your class, ranges a little bit. But if your town is very big, you're pretty much going to have between 25 and 30 kids in a class. So one teacher and 25 to 30 kids. Some small communities, like if it's very rural, small town, then they might have less. But in general, that's going to be average class size is going to be around 25. It may be a little less, a little more, depending on a few things, but that's in general. But the schools typically have more than one teacher for each grade level. So there might be a school that has, 500 students, and it might have 4 kindergarten classrooms and 4 first grade classrooms and 4 second grade classrooms and so on and so forth. And so sometimes those classes work together. It depends on the teachers, but they do a lot of different things. So that's kind of the schools. And then the schools, the way they're organized is sometimes it's like it's just a first grade center or it's just a third grade center, but more generally it's going to be an elementary school, which might be like kindergarten through 4th or 5th grade, and then middle school, which would be like 5th or 6th through 8th grade, and then high school, which is usually 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade. And so that's kind of how those grades are separated out and students are grouped in that kind of a way. And part of that is because of busing, because a lot of students ride a bus to school. And so they'll have a big bus that goes around and picks up the kids and takes them to their school so that way it's a little more efficient. But you asked me about teachers and teacher pay. So in the United States, teacher pay is very different from one state to the next state. Some states pay more than other states do. In Missouri and Kansas, a teacher starts their starting of their career out probably around $42,000 a year. So that sounds like a lot, but teachers in the US, most teachers that are in public schools get a pension. So that would be kind of like a retirement plan. And it's not a free thing because the teachers pay into that. So in Missouri, for instance, when I was a teacher and a principal and a superintendent, I paid into my pension. And so 14% of my salary went into my retirement plan, my pension plan. And then the school district also matched 48 or 14%. So 28% of my salary is what went into a pension plan to help me then with a retirement thing. And in order to retire, a teacher in general teaches around 30 years to be able to be eligible to retire with a full retirement side of things. So it's a little, there are different ways to retire, like if you come to teaching a little later and that kind of stuff. But in general, the majority of teachers teach for 30 years and then they retire. So they can retire pretty young, because in the United States, if you go to high school and then go directly to college, then you're going to be around 21 when you become a teacher. And if you teach for 30 years, then you would be in your early 50s whenever you retire. And then you can still work because you're young. So that's what I'm doing. I retired from education, but I retired young. And then now I'm working a whole nother career. But the nice thing is that I have daughters. I have 2 daughters. And so when I retired, I started getting my retirement check. But then I also had another job. So I could use that retirement check to pay for college for my daughters, because college is very expensive. So, and I didn't make enough money when I was a teacher to be able to save very much for college. So that's kind of a little bit about that.
Yeah, thank you so much for giving us a comprehensive analysis about the system that they're prevailing in your country. And with regards to this aspect, I have a curious question. So what is the process of selection for the teachers in your state as well as elsewhere in the country?
Yeah, great question. So I used to be a principal and a superintendent, so I hired teachers. So I was in charge of choosing who got to be on our school team, right? And who got to be a part of our school. And so there are a few things that first have to happen. So in the United States, in order to teach in general, you have to get a bachelor's degree from college. And that bachelor's degree then has to lead to teacher certification. And so you have to apply to the state to become a certified teacher. So you have a degree, and that degree has a certain kind of classes that say that you can teach math or you can teach science, because you have different kinds of classes that you had to take at college in order to get different certifications. So it's not like I can just become a teacher. I become a teacher of something in particular. So once you have your certification, then you can apply to a school district, and a school district then will do interviews. And so like when I was in a small school district that we didn't have a lot of applicants, we were less picky about the teachers, honestly, than when I was in a large district and I had a lot of teacher applicants. So like when I was in the large district with a lot of teacher applicants, then we would interview the teachers and we would meet with them for about an hour and ask questions about how they would do things and how would they teach, what were the strategies they would use, what kinds of things would they use if children are misbehaving, that kind of stuff. And then we would narrow it down to the top 2, and we would invite the top 2 teacher candidates that we were thinking they're going to be the best, and we would have them teach a lesson in front of students. And for us, having them teach a lesson in front of students was a big difference maker. So we might have thought that this one was going to be better than the other one, but when they got in front of kids, they had that magic that the teachers have, that where they connect and the kids are smiling and engaging. And so then we would hire the one that was the best with the students.
My name is Farhat Tabassum. I am studying 7th grader from JPH School, Ailevaram. Now I would like to ask a question. Can I ask, ma'am?
Yes.
Could you please list out famous universities of the USA?
Yes, I'm happy to talk about universities in the USA. There's several that are famous that like have like really strong reputations. So that means that people think that they're going to be great for a variety of different reasons. So like you think about what we call the Ivy Leagues. So if you were to Google Ivy Leagues, you would come up with a list of the colleges and universities that pretend to be better than everybody else. And the reason I say pretend to be is because there's not a lot of difference other than how much it costs. You can get a quality education at the majority of the universities in the United States. There's a few that aren't so great, but there's 4,000 different universities in the United States. And so what I want to talk to you about is how you figure out what college is the right college for you, because it's not just about which one is famous, it's about which one is the best at preparing people for the degree that you're choosing. So if you want to become a teacher, there are better colleges that do teaching than do other things. If you want to be an engineer, then you may want to go to a college that is really great in engineering, but they may not be very good at teaching. So it's different that way. And so what is the most famous for you? Like if you were looking for the very best, then you want to look for the very best in the degree that you're going to go for. That makes a difference. And so you can look for rankings and you can Google and do research about the universities to see which one has the best degree for this. Like MIT is going to be the best for engineering and science kinds of things. There are others that are the best for arts and culture, or there are others that are really good in different kinds of things. Like for teaching in particular, pretty much all state public institutions do a really good job of teaching with teaching degrees. But what I also want to tell you about is, like, in the States, there are public and private universities. Public universities have government dollars that help to run the university. So they're usually cheaper to attend because of that. Private universities have some different rules, they do different things, but they're only dependent upon your tuition. So because of that, they're more expensive usually. And a lot of times those Ivy Leagues and those famous ones are private institutions. And the way that they became famous was they became famous by being very selective. And they would say, oh, only 2% of the people who apply get to come. So they're picky about their students, but sometimes their pickiness gets pretty biased and they choose people who have money and they choose people who are, it's not a fair system. And there's a lot of criticism in the United States right now about the systems for selecting admissions and things like that. So you have to kind of work through the system and do your research. What I would tell you is a lot of times you can get a better education in a not famous university because of the fact that they have smaller class sizes and they connect with their students a little more. And because they're not getting, thousands and thousands and thousands of applicants, they fight a little more to be a great university that serves you as well as you're getting your education there. So those are some kind of things. There are different types of universities, even across the state, that are public institutions. In Missouri, I'll tell you that the University of Missouri-Columbia is where I got my doctorate degree. And it is what we call the flagship of the state. So there's one university in every state that is considered the flagship and the best and the biggest there, and has more degrees and more programs. Whereas the smaller regional universities have less degrees. I got my bachelor's degree from a smaller regional university and my master's degree from a different smaller regional university, and then my doctorate from the flagship.
Hello, ma'am. Good morning, ma'am. My name is Padmaja. I am a 7th grader from Jilla Pashat School, Ailavaram. I am so glad to interact with you. Now, I would like to ask you a question. Can I ask, ma'am?
Yes.
What is Kansas state famous for?
So I'm going to talk about Kansas and Missouri because that's kind of where I bridge that. And so Kansas is a huge flat state. Like there's a lot of farmland. So in the United States, we drive a lot from in the Midwest, in the middle of the United States, we drive a lot across the states. And so like if I was going to go from Missouri to Colorado, another state, I would drive through Kansas, and Kansas is this really flat state. And so you just feel like you're driving and driving and driving, and you just see fields and fields and fields of crops and cows. And so a lot of farming in Kansas, and the same is true in Missouri. There's a lot of farmland, but it is more hilly than Kansas is. Kansas is very flat, and Missouri has a little bit more of rolling hills. Where like Colorado, like if I want to go to Colorado, I'm going because I'm going to the mountains, because there's big mountains there. So there's differences across the United States, what the states are like. In Missouri, some of the things that we're famous for is one of the things is the Gateway Arch. So you can Google the St. Louis Arch, and it's a really unique engineering kind of feature, but it's like if you think about an arch, but it's been built by men, and you can actually go up inside it. So if you ever come to Missouri, you can go to St. Louis and you can get in a little elevator, and you sit in this elevator, and there's 4 people, and it goes up and then it tips you, and then it straightens you up, and then you go up and it tips you and it straightens you up, because you're going an angle up all the way to the top. And then when you're at the top, you can look outside. There's windows and you can look outside over the city and over the Mississippi River and all of that. And you can see into Illinois. And then you get in the elevator and you go down and it just takes you slowly down that thing. And there's a whole museum about this, about Missouri and Missouri history in the basement of the St. Louis Arch. It's a really wonderful place to go visit.
Thank you so much.
The weddings. Good morning or good after or good evening, I should say.
I am Husnia, a 7th grader from U.S.A School, Ilavaram. Nice to meet you, ma'am.
Nice to
Ma'am,
meet
can
you.
I ask a question?
Yes.
Here, my question is, what kind of job opportunities are there for U.S. citizens and Indians?
Yes, that's great. A great question. And what I would say is the sky is the limit on what job opportunities there are. And in fact, even as old as I am, and I'm told you I'm old enough that I retired already once, right? I still meet people, and when I shake their hand and I am introduced to them, I realize like they have a really cool job that I never even knew existed. So I think when you think about what kind of jobs are possible, there are all kinds of jobs possible. There are jobs that are very obvious, like everybody knows, doctors and teachers and different kinds of things that way. And we know other things like people who work in the grocery store and people who are driving trucks across the country to do different things. And so what I would say is in the US, and I think this is good for Indians as well, is that you can get a good paying job even if you don't go to college. So there's a whole new movement in the US to where you can come and you can work and you can get even more money than you might get with a college degree, depending on the job that you choose. So you have to do a lot of research about the jobs that you're choosing and figure those kinds of things out. I worked for a little while with helping people build a program where they would do 1 year of training and they made more money than I made when I was a new teacher. So there are lots of different kinds of jobs, but your education is what gets you to progress across a career. So you might be able to come into a job with little bits of training, but then you continue to learn. So the thing that's really important, I think, in getting a job and then being able to continually climb with more salary and get better life as you go is by continuing learning. So we call that lifelong learning. So you're in school right now, you're learning, and you're going to go to school as long as you can for free, right? And then it starts to where you have to pay for it. Well, what I will tell you is when you start paying for learning, the more that you do that, the less other people do, so that you can compete and you can grow in your career and you earn more money. And that's kind of a little bit different about job opportunities. And so the other thing that you need to know about job opportunities is some job opportunities have a path to take you higher, and some job opportunities don't. And so you need to research that and say, okay, so if I started off as a let's just to say you started off working in the hospital, helping fix people's food, right? Then you can get more education and you could then become a phlebotomist. A phlebotomist takes your blood. And so they go around the hospital, and when you're in the hospital, they come by and they take your blood. So you could do that job. And then if you go to school some more, you could become a medical assistant. So you're helping the nurses and the doctors, and you're a medical assistant, but it took more education, and now you're getting more money. Well, then once you're doing that, you're like, oh, I could be that nurse. So then you go to school some more and you become the nurse. And so there's a pathway that steps you along and upward in a career versus just a job. And so what I would challenge you all to do is, as you're thinking about what you want to do with your life, I would look for things that give you chances to continue learning so that you continue growing in your career and you make more money and you are able to provide for your families better.
Okay, thank you.
So,
How are you, ma'am?
I am excellent. I'm loving getting to visit with you all today.
Thank you, ma'am. My name is Nitpika. I am a 7th grader from GPH School, I11. I am so glad to interact with you. I have one question. Can I ask, ma'am?
Yes.
What kind of pensionary benefits that retired get there, and what is the age of retirement there?
Okay, so the retirement pieces for anybody in the United States is different and it varies. The general age of retirement for people that don't have a pension. Remember, I had a pension as a teacher and I could retire after 30 years. And I didn't have to work anymore. I would get money, but I chose to work more because I'm still young, right? But for generally in the United States, people who were born when I was born. So if you're my age or younger, you retire at age 67. And when you retire at 67, that's a choice. That's when the government says you should be able to retire and they'll start giving you money. There's a thing in the United States called Social Security. And Social Security is automatically taking out of your paycheck. So when your boss pays you, they give you money, but they also give the government money for you. So that money goes to the government and the government then is supposedly saving that for your retirement. Now, the problem is that the government does things the way governments do. And sometimes those aren't the most efficient and best ways. And so I'm not sure that people your age, if you were in the United States and you were growing up and you went and did that, the Social Security would be there for you. And Social Security is not very much money. So my parents didn't have a pension like I did. They didn't go to college, so they didn't have anything like that. So they paid into Social Security and they now get a check from the government to live on, but it doesn't pay for very much. So it's a very small check and it's just barely covering like food and your medicines and all of that. So most Americans do actually extra retirement. So you plan for your retirement. And so if you don't have a pension, or even if you do, you can get what is called a 401k. And it is like a savings account. So like if you were going to go save money in the bank, well, this is saving money in a bank, but it helps it to make money. So it has interest and it has compounding interest. So that money is growing all the time, but depending on how you have it invested. And so you take money and you put it there, but in a 401k, I can't go, oh my gosh, my car broke down. I'm going to go take some of that money and fix my car. In a 401k, you can't touch that money. You can't go get it unless there's a penalty. And then they charge you if you take money out of it, because it's designed to be something that is, the government says, if you put this money over here, we're going to let you keep the interest and all of that as long as you wait until you're retired to start using it. So it's kind of a forced savings account if you choose to participate in it. You just can't go get it without a penalty. So there's lots of different ways that people do with retirement, but planning for retirement and is different. Like I know people who retire early and they decide not to wait until the government's going to take care of it, but they had to save a lot of extra money while they were working to be able to do that.
So we do have the same. Actually, we used to have one system of pension until 2004. We used to enjoy one system. Ever since I came to this profession of teaching, I entered in the profession and way back 2002. Fortunately, I have been under the old pensionary benefits. So when I get retired, maybe in the year of 2038, something around. So I get the old pensionary benefits, but those who get absorbed in the public sector after 2004, and the new government policy, according to the new government policy, they have adopted a new pensionary system. As per that system, teachers or any employee joined after 2004 has to contribute for their own pension. So they have to contribute 50% from their salary and another 50% matching grant that comes from the government. Then the amount is fixed in the security, just like what you have just mentioned, that, and in the mutual funds. And so that's how the policies, but there are a lot of agitations coming from the student teachers unions and the employees unions to save them from getting this particular new system, and they want to absorb in the old system because they have witnessed the benefits of the old system. But the scenario is like this in India. But how about in USA? Do you have the same kind of system like I have mentioned that the old system where I need not pay anything for my pension. The government has to look after everything for my pension. Whereas the new system, the employees has to pay 50%, another 50% from the government. Then they mix the 100% amount in a some security deposits in companies. We never know that whether the money that they deposit in security deposits might grow or might maybe it all depends on the fluctuations. So
Yes.
how about there the pensionary system in your country?
So it's similar in the sense of different kinds of money and the contributions. So we're required, if you're not working, well, actually anybody now is required to pay in, so out of your paycheck to the Social Security side of it. On the 401k side, that's a choice. So you get to choose whether you're doing that or you're not. Many employers match that. So like if I put in 3% of my salary, they'll put in 3% of my salary. And then I get to decide how that's invested. So that's the other difference. Like the Social Security money goes to the government. It doesn't grow for me. It's just in this big pot that everybody gets distributed out of. For my 401k, this is my money. It has my name on it, but it can be invested how I say. So I can decide, I'm going to be more riskier. I'm almost to retire. I'm going to be very conservative. And so I get to decide the types of investments that I make. Am I going to invest in risky things or not risky things? Because that is my money and I get to make decisions about it. But a lot of times employers will match that. So you get to have some of your money and their money, but it is all for you. It's kind of like your pay and an extra kind of pay. Excuse me. And so with that, you get to make decisions, but sometimes those decisions could be bad. Like if the market crashes, one time whenever I was a lot younger, I had some money in the market like that, and I was younger, so it was more risky, and I lost like $20,000, which was a whole lot of money to me at the time. Now, I left that money in there and it grew back, but sometimes it will and sometimes it doesn't, but it's about time. So being with money in the market and having compounding interest, that's really good. I was at a conference though a few weeks ago, and some businessmen who are savvy and they know money, right? They know how to do that. And they were saying that if we just we should do away with Social Security. If we would just give every individual baby $1,000 in an account that actually was invested in a compounding interest way, they would have more money than they're going to have in Social Security to have their life during retirement. So one of the lessons with that is that if you have even $20 a week or a month, start saving that and investing it, not just saving it in a bank, but saving it in an investment account where it grows and it has opportunity to do that. If you do that for a long time, it's called compounding interest, and that really makes you a lot more money than you had in the first place.
Okay, thank you so much. And I request you take a sip of water so that I can ask another question.
Great, thank you. Super, thank you.
Yes, so I have a question. In India, in my region, especially, a public teacher works in an institution for just 8 years. So after the completion of 8 years, he has to be transferred to some other school. And again, after serving for the students for 8 years, again, the teacher has to be transferred from that particular institute to another institute. So this is how the journey starts and ends. Public teachers. Sometimes some teachers get frustrated over the system of transfer from one place to another place, because some teachers think that this place is good for me. So why can't I go? I should stay here. I should get retired from this particular institute. So some teachers, they blame, yes, I have to get transferred from this institute, some other institute, because this school, I think students are not good. They are not behaving properly. So that's the issues that the teachers confront in my region. So how about the system in your country and in your region?
So in the US, we're free and we get to do what we want for the most part. So I can say, I'm done teaching. I don't want to teach anymore. I can quit. I can lay out for a little bit and come back and all of that, but it is my choice. The power, though, is in the school district. So the school district decides who they're going to hire. And so I choose you, you can be there as long as I let you be there. And the way that I say that is because if you're not a good teacher, then I'm going to fire you. Like that's that you have to go get a new job. Like you can't be my teaching my kids because you're not doing a good job. But in general, teachers do a really good job and they stay year after year after year and they become part of the community and they stay for as long as they want. So I had, like when I was a principal, I had a teacher who had been teaching in the very same classroom, the very same grade for 29 years when I became her principal. So she had been in that very community. She had had parents and their kids and their grandkids all in the 29 years, you know, just because, so that there was so many things that she had seen in that process. But people can also move. So it's hard to move from one state to another state. Like I was always in Missouri. My pension was in Missouri. If I moved to Kansas, I had to start over my 30 years. So I still had this money over here, but it wasn't going to work for me the same way. So a lot of times teachers tend to stay in the same state right now. It's kind of a problem because now the world is very flat and people move around all the time. And so if you're married and your husband isn't a teacher, then he gets a great job opportunity in another state. Then you have to, you know, you move because you love him, right? And so those kinds of things. So teachers do move around, but it is their choice to move around unless they're not a good teacher and the administration moved them out because they weren't good for kids.
Have a request for you to give a message to my students.
A message to your students. Okay, well, first, it is my honor to be with you today. I'm so excited about the fact that you are embracing learning the way that you do, the fact that you are choosing on your summer vacation to spend time learning is a really great accomplishment. And more importantly, it's a really great clue into how great your life is going to be because it shows right now that you learn even when you don't have to. And learning is a key thing to your life that will open doors and it will be something that provides a future for you that is more than you could even ever dream. Because each time you learn something new, then there's more view of what's out there. And so being able to see more broadly the world and having the opportunity to understand different kinds of countries and different kinds of cities, you are so blessed because you have this kind of a teacher that is demonstrating to you what learning does for you, is it's going to open doors. And so I can't wait to continue to watch on Facebook the things that Harry's students are doing. And so that way you can show me. And so you guys be sure to keep communicating with him so that when he shares it, then even when I'm really old, then I'll be able to see like, oh my goodness, look what Nithvika did. And so it will be awesome because he'll be able to share your stories because you guys are doing amazing things. You're going to be amazing adults. So congratulations.